Morning, ladies and gentlemen. It gives me much pleasure to share our thoughts in terms of our relationship with the publishers, Kenya Libraries and Information Services Consortium. I'm going to give my presentation in three parts. First, I'll begin by giving some background of the higher education and research arena in Kenya, and then I will talk about the various engagements that we have had with publishers and what we have found value. And then I will conclude by giving some way forward and what we have learned through that relationship that we've had with the publishers. So in Kenya, the research or the higher education arena has actually been affected by the massive expansion in the education sector. Just like Kakman said at the beginning, Kenya is just one of those countries that have been affected. It has been a situation whereby everybody is yearning to go to university. And at one time that there was a long time strike in the country, and that forced the government to ensure that there were 3 intakes into the university for a number of years, and also the increase in private establishment of private universities in the country is mushrooming. And also the technology has brought with it the distance education learning, which has enabled a lot of people to yearn for university education. Also, in terms of our research and higher education system in Kenya, there is research output demand in the country. Just as Kirkland had said earlier on, all institutions in the country are yearning and they are under pressure to ensure that they are engaged in innovation and research. And therefore, universities are attempting to build their research capacity, train professionals and support postgraduate learning, and increase the academic output through research. And therefore, there is the aim to build world-class institutions that can be benchmarked on a global platform. And everybody is talking about the worldwide ranking, and therefore research just seems to give this impetus into institutions wanting to engage in research so that they can appear on the world map in terms of research. When we look at the funding of libraries in the country, we find that public institutions are normally funded through the government or through the generation of fees and income generating projects that have come about because fees and government funding are not enough to enable the institutions to move on because of the cuts that come up with at any time of the year. So you are not quite sure whether this year you'll get enough provision from the government or not, and therefore you must be ready to find some income generating project that can assist you to be able to find some money. And even when that money comes to the universities, the library is never given the priority. Normally other institutions will be given their allocations, and the library is thought of last. And even there are situations whereby you allocated the funds, but spending the funds becomes a big challenge, because when there is something that comes up, the library is the first victim to suffer from the cuts. Well, the Commission for University Education has tried to come up with guidelines and standards that actually can enable the institutions to ensure that libraries are sufficiently funded, but that has not worked quite well. Only a few institutions, particularly in the private sector, the private universities, are the ones that have tried to come up and measure up to the expectations of the Commission for University Education. And therefore, it's against this background that in in the year 003, university libraries, through their University Libraries Committee of 7 public institutions at the time, came together and they came up with a decision to form the consortium, the Kenya Library and Information Services Consortium, as a measure of intervention, given that, that scenario, so that they could collectively bargain and subscribe to e-resources. And later on, they were joined by other institutions, the private institutions, and the consortium gradually started to grow, and the other research institutes were welcomed on board. And so that is where the consortium is, and the consortium has been growing gradually. And out of our membership of 7 institutions to begin with, we are standing at 110 members at the moment. So the library, therefore, is operating in this kind of environment that is changing. So what is this environment that is changing? We are seeing that in the library, in the provision of information, we are having different types of information formats to be provided. We are seeing the move from the print to electronic. We are seeing the scenario of local to shared resources. We are also focusing on services, ensuring that the user is given the service at the time they need it and promptly, and not giving starvation to the user. So we are focusing on services. Then the student behavior of information is changing. We are seeing that with the ICT into place, our students are focusing mainly by beginning with the Google, as we mentioned. So it is a challenge for the library to ensure that they are trying to ensure that their students are aware of the other environments that are there, and therefore working and engaging with publishers closely is important, so that we are aware of the resources that are available other than the Google. We are seeing also the new technologies and the scholarly tools that are being marketed on the market at the moment, whereby there's a lot of reliance on the impact of research. So those tools that are coming along, the library is not going to be left behind. It's supposed to, the library in the university as an institution is therefore being engaged in looking for those tools, identifying them, and alerting the scholars about those tools that can help them in finding out how they are performing in their research and the impact that research is actually providing. So the library, therefore, as you can see, is operating in Kenya, is operating in such a turbulent environment with all these things happening. So in order for it to succeed, therefore, the libraries in Kenya must provide the right information resources and the tools and infrastructure for the user to benefit from the library. Now, the ICT infrastructure in Kenya is varied, and various libraries are at various levels. And in each institution, everybody is ensuring that they are connected, they have internet connectivity. And in the universities, this is mainly done through Kenya Education Network, KENNET, which is a national research and education network of Kenya. And KENNET provides, it relies on members. So universities are members of KENNET, and the KENNET attempts to provide affordable, cost-effective, and low-congestion internet bandwidth services to member institution campuses in the country. So to ensure that libraries remain focused, Commission for University Education also recommends that libraries shall adopt and maintain new ICTs as they develop. So Q also is a major force in encouraging libraries in the countries to make sure that they are networked or they are taking advantage of the technologies that are available. So the value of publishers, as we recognize that there is a lot of changes in pricing that are always coming, and at the same time there is more content that comes with the along with publishers. So in the country, through the consortium, our experience has been that some of the publishers have retained their deal over the years without significant price changes. Others have increased their prices to the extent that their subscriptions sometimes we have been forced to drop because we couldn't afford the prices that were not with pace to our financial situation. Our other experience is that perpetual experience from publishers means a lot to us, since the material that was previously subscribed to is still accessible. And also, we find that affordable prices fitting within annual minimum budgets increases increases with the institutions. So what we are saying here is that we need publishers to work with us, to engage with us, such that the prices that they bring to us are affordable to us, so that we can fit in our budgets our annual budgets that we have set aside. Then we also, our relationship with them is that we require continued access and allowing us to share our resources across the consortium members. We have had situations whereby some of the members are unable to even pay for the little that we have allocated them. So we would require that and request that publishers do understand and bear with us when we say that we cannot afford a given resource. Then we need to reach a compromise whereby they understand that the environment is different for each institution. All institutions are not working at and do not have budgets similar to others. Some have favorable budgets, others do not. So the weaker ones need to be carried along in the understanding that a consortium shares one goal. Also, some of the value that we have attained from our relationship with the publishers is that we have been able to have more membership, so shared cost reaches to more users. So when the publishers understand us and understand our environment, then we have been able to benefit in the sense that more users are able to access resources that they might otherwise have never been able to share. We have also been able to increase a number of databases, subscriptions, covering a wider range of subject areas. Now, the need for strategic planning within the consortium. We all know that a strategic plan is a formal, continuous process of making decisions based on internal and external assessments. So CLISC, recognizing the need of a strategic plan, has come up with its own plan that helps the consortium to identify priorities and helps them to respond to the changing environments as and when they come. And also we're aiming at maintaining the quality of e-resources that our member institutions are accessing. And so in this strategic plan, our call upon the publishers is that every year we have set targets and we have budgets that we anticipate that will work for us in that 1 year. So with this strategic planning, we would like that we develop a relationship whereby in our engagement with the publishers, that there'll be that recognition that in a given year that we have so much to spend, and therefore we would only work within that kind of budget. So it is a relationship that would like that engagement to be that you understand us and we understand you, that kind of situation. So we need mechanisms in place to ensure that members receive their, we have put mechanisms in place to ensure that all our members receive their invoices. And usually these invoices and badges are tagged to the financial years. So what we are aiming at from this year is that we would send out the invoices at the beginning of the financial years. So if the publishers understood the timing that our invoices are going out, then that would be the right time that they would, we would be able to engage best to avoid disappointments when we are unable to purchase. Then another realization that we need to share is that our budgets are not increasing, and in many cases they are diminishing. If I may talk about my institution, for example, in the last financial year, the university as a whole had a budget cut, allocation cut by 1 billion Kenya shillings. Divide that by 155 pounds shillings, then you'll be able to know what that is in pounds. So then what happens is the library that suffers. You're asking for requests, you want to purchase certain resources, then there's reference to the cuts that you know that this year we didn't have enough money. So you need to do something about the resources that you are requesting. So that causes a number of delays, and it may cause a bit of a friction with our publishers when we delay, but I should emphasize here that it's not the wish of the librarians or the consortium not to pay the publishers on time, but the environment and the circumstances sometimes do cause those delays. And so CLISC requests that the publishers work with us and understand the circumstances that the consortium goes through at times. So when you are faced with such a situation, then it is like seek and hide kind of engagement. So where the publisher is asking for their money and we are saying just wait, the money is still with the finance office and so on and so forth. It is the environment, and so we should both understand that when faced with such circumstances, then such circumstances are bound to arise. Then another area that I think we need to engage with is that the publishers need to assess each consortium's affordability and align their pricing accordingly. As I said at the beginning, we are not all at the same levels. So where the consortium is a little bit stronger, then the publisher can align their pricing accordingly so that the one that cannot afford is assisted to come up and walk along with that one that can afford. Another area that we know is that CLISC has a very strong partnership and it can provides affordable access. And thanks to INASP and IFO, we have worked very well, and they have helped us to engage publishers and therefore bring us to a level where we can afford to subscribe to the necessary resources that our consortium requires. Now, what are some of the things that have gone well? As I've said, one of them is the fact that we have been able to partner with INASP to provide resources and train librarians. This has been a very strong partnership, and we have continuously had the privilege to access information resources and also to develop human capacity in the country. And as I'm talking, we have had a number of training courses. We have developed trainers of trainers through INASP. And I think that that has been a major shift in the scenario, in the provision of information in the country. We have been able to have access to wider number of electronic resources, and we have also a well-structured consortium, whereby we have been able to, after we came up with a strategic plan, we felt that for implementation to be effective, we came up with various committees that were responsible for various areas that we needed to strengthen our take on. So we have also a growing CLISC membership, which is an advantage to us. We also are engaged with the open access movement, and we have seen the country come up with a number of institutional repositories. University of Nairobi was the first, and as it is, the repository is growing very fast. We have more than 81,000 records that are harnessing our institution output. Then empowerment. We have had empowerment in negotiating for e-resources. One of the committees is solely engaged in negotiation, in negotiating and licensing matters. We also are able to capture our usage statistics from some of the publishers. We have also optimum utilization of funds from the institutions. Things to be learned from what has not gone well. In some cases, libraries sometimes have to abide by the non-print cancellation in the license agreements. You have a license agreement and you are told, we are going to provide you with the e-resources, provided that you also must stick with the print copy. You may not need it. Another lesson to be learned is that the consortia should have the option to purchase the electronic product without the paper subscription. Then the electronic product should cost substantially less than the printed subscription price. When titles to which the consortium has perpetual rights transfers from one publisher to the other, there is no guarantee that the consortium will continue a licensing relationship with the acquiring publisher. Therefore, the obligation to provide a means of access to issues up to the point of transfer remains with the original publisher. The publisher must not fail to provide a practical method of continuing access. This obligation includes the complete acquisition of one publisher by another. In this case, the acquiring publisher must provide the method for continuing access to acquired publishers' titles up to the point of the acquisition. This means that a condition of any sale of an entire set of publications to another publishing must include as a condition of sale that perpetual access will be provided to titles that a consortium purchased, perpetual rights up to the date of the sale. We are also saying that the base price for the electronic content should be no more than 80% of the price for the electronic plus print. We're also saying that the combined electronic and print price is no more than the price of the current print-only subscription. Package deals from publishers have become very common, and maybe the consortium will only be interested in some given titles, so that must be put into consideration. Publishers should also try as much as possible to maximize access to their collection, but also take into consideration the needs of the consortia as they come up with their packages. Structured poorly, the best arrangement for both libraries and publishers should be broader rather than narrower title access. Consortia should be allowed to remove titles that they choose that they find not relevant. Then finally, agreements to procure electronic information must include cost-effective provisions to purchase and not just to lease or provide temporary access. Publishers should also provide the archival data at no additional charge beyond the regular prices. And if that is done, then we believe that the CLISC publisher relationship will continue to thrive despite the turbulent environment that CLISC is operating in. Thank you very much for listening to me.